So what I want to do is spend about 15-20 minutes talking about the book project, because that's how we came to be here. Thalma has promised not to interrupt me for 20 minutes, which is, for her, is quite a concession. And then what I'll do is hand out a sort of bit of information about Thalma on that sheet there around, so that you have some idea of, you know, where, well, you've already heard a little bit of where she comes from, but it's a bit more detailed. And then you can ask her questions before we show some of the animation films. Now, I should introduce myself, and I should say that I have no qualifications for talking about animation. Right? I'm a psychologist. I used to work in this hospital down the road, in this very street, before it was turned into a pile of rubble. Now, I've known Thalma since 1969, and I've closely followed her filmmaking over the years. In fact, she sometimes claims that she would consult me in the process of making the films. I don't know if I was...
Very important.
I don't know if I was her creative nursemaid or her psychological nursemaid, one or the other, or a bit of both. Certainly, I watched a lot of animation films in the 1970s, and I also accompanied Thalma to Annecy on one of the film festival occasions. I should also say that we have here Neil Hornick sitting there in the back, who's also known Thalma as long as I have. I'm sure maybe a little longer. I'm sure he will say a few words later probably. Neil set up an experimental theatre group. Was it in the 1960s?
1960s, 1970s.
Yeah, called Phantom Captain. And he's also very interested in animation. And he was also involved in the making of Amateur Night, which is the first, well, the third film you'll see in the soundtrack.
Also Glim and Yellow Moon.
Yeah, so he was involved in those films, and it's only through his efforts that we have all the information, the news clips and stuff, which he carefully recorded and kept somewhere in his flat, you know, and pulled out and showed me a few months ago. He also, when Thalma's films were shown on some of the Channel 4 programs, and also BBC Arena program, I think it was, Neil actually took VHS copies of those TV transmissions, and that's really the basis of our DVD, which we're showing you tonight. I thought I might see Sarah Vincent here tonight, who's another old friend of Thalma and also a member of this club, but she's not here. Now, yeah. Now, unfortunately, Sylvie Bennett-Tupi, who is the person who is co-editing this book with me, can't make it tonight. She is also, well, her husband, Peter Tupi, had a studio, film studio in Soho, where Thalma made her films, right, on a rostrum camera there. Because of her knowledge of animation, and also because she works in publishing and magazine editing and so on, she'll be working with me co-editing the book about Thalma. Let me just explain. The main reason why we are producing this book is that, you know, her friends and also her relatives would be very disappointed if her contribution to British animation was forgotten. Now, she is mentioned in Claire Kitson's recent book on animation, and also in Dennis Gifford's British animation films, 1895 to 1985. However, Thalma is the world's worst conservator of her own work, and we really don't know where the original 35mm footage is, most of the case. Most of the time, do we?
What's that?
We don't know where the original 35mm films are, of your films.
They're only inside my cupboard.
Well, I don't think they're inside your
most
cupboard.
of them, not all of them.
I think they're in pieces in your cupboard. But anyway,
Some of them are
we're going to look
34.
in her cupboard and in
they're very rusty.
and she told me only yesterday about a DVD of a film which we can show later tonight.
Yeah, it's a film that I did continuous to the magician one, but it's a stage of not being cut.
Oh, I see, it's uncut.
And
Okay.
not finished, but
Not
it's
finished.
quite,
Okay, well,
pretty.
I didn't know about this film
Did
before.
you never saw it light?
I know that there are rushes of her last film, which she never
I can't
never
even-
finished, The
yeah.
Great Consini. Unfortunately, we only got one or two drawings from that, which we can show you. But afterwards, if there's time, we'll show you some recent drawings and paintings that Thalma has done over the last 20, 30 years. She's kept, I think, since animation went digital, and then Thalma gave up, and then just went to work really as an artist, not didn't continue
The
using.
most important one of the book is one.
So the aim of our book is to present Thalma's biography, give an account of her films with illustrations, some original cells, artworks and so on, and we have some ancient sort of press reaction collected by Neil and Thalma. So and we should remember that the 1970s and 1980s was probably the height of British feminism. Now the film Amateur Night, as Martin has mentioned, didn't go down very well and was booed and shouted down by feminists at the National Film Theatre when it was first shown. It'll be interesting to see or to hear what Thalma has to say about it now, and also your own reactions. Now personally, I think that Thalma rarely has any deliberately thought out intentions behind her work. Certainly she didn't set out to upset anybody with Amateur Night. And I think this is part of the charm of her work. It seems to come out of her own obsessions and her creative instincts. Now this doesn't mean it's not deeply reflective of the human condition, and it always has an impact. So the book will include many images of recent work as well as original hand-coloured drawings. We intend to interview people who've known Thalma. That includes Peter Lewis, who taught Thalma at St Martin's School of Art in the early 60s. Sadly, friends such as Alison de Vere have since died. We've been promised an introduction by Annabelle Jankel, who, as I'm sure you know, created the cyber character Max Headroom in the 1980s, and she's also known Thalma for some time. So we'll create a kind of collage of impressions from various sources, but the main impression will come from the illustrations in the book. We're still open to contributions for the content of the book, so if you have any, let us know. I am going to, I might as well do this now, I am going to audio record. Let's see if it's working now.
Is there a way of putting it on the far corner?
Oh, it is now, yeah.
Just moving it a
So
little bit closer.
it'll be interesting to get any reactions you have, because we might use that material in the book. So we won't name anybody unless you want to be named, but you can let us know who you are when you make a comment if you wish. Martin also asked me to just say something about the practical side of producing the book. First of all, we approached the BFI, the British Film Institute. They passed us on to Routledge, who are their publishers, and unfortunately they weren't interested at all. So we decided to go down the self-funding and self-publishing route. I self-published a book before. The book cost around £5,000 to produce, actually, not counting the time involved. So it is quite an expensive business. In fact, the major expense was the book designer, I think, for my book. But we're hoping to do this business of design ourselves, and Sylvie works in publishing and in the magazine business, so I think we can do it. So we decided to take use a crowdfunding site to set up a project, and we used Sponsor Me, and the project, or the crowdfunding project, ended yesterday, and we've raised about £4,000, which is great, quite enough to to create the book. Not quite enough to use a specialist arts printer, but we can use a good colour digital printers, someone recommended to me by an artist. Now Sponsor Me takes money in virtually any currency in the world through PayPal, so that's a big advantage. Some of the sites only take dollars and pounds, which is not useful. Sponsor Me also specialises in culture and the arts, so films, books, plays and so on. The main problem with PayPal is that it's incredibly confusing and difficult to use it, and I'm sure many people gave up when they attempted to do so. It is extremely difficult and complicated. But what you do, you make a pledge and the money is not taken out of your account until the end of the campaign. And then once we reach your minimum target, then the money leaves your account. So I've had a few people, contacting me, 3 months later, what the hell were you taking my money for? They've forgotten what they had pledged. Right. So you make a sort of promise to deliver certain goods for each pledge. So things like posters and original drawings and a copy of the book when it's published. Now I think our experience of who makes a pledge is very instructive. About 99% of the people who made a pledge were personally known to us, friends or relatives. Now Sponsor Me is a public website, and if it attracts the public, they're very quiet and don't spend any money at all. So if you're thinking of doing the same thing yourself, you have to rely entirely on alerting people to the existence of the campaign. Now I alerted about 20 leaders of animation courses around the country in various art schools. I alerted various Jewish cultural organisations, the British Film Institute, anyone in fact, well also international websites on animation. But in fact this produced absolutely zero. So the only real interest we've had is from Martin, actually, and his club. So thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Right. Anyway, once we've produced a book, we hope perhaps to have a little exhibition of Thalma's works, produce a good DVD which we can put up for sale as well. Okay, so I've probably said quite enough. So I think what I'll do is hand out this sheet of paper which will give you a little bit of more information about Thalma, and then maybe you can invite, well you can I mean we're inviting you to ask us any questions you like now, just before we...
After the film.
No, before the film, just about...
Or after?
Well, I don't know.
After.
I think if there are any questions you want to sort of...
I think after.
I mean, maybe Neil might want to say something, I don't know, or maybe afterwards.
Well, I'm not sure. I can say a few words now. I too have known Thalma since 1969, as long as I've known my wife. This was through my wife that I met her, and in due course was very impressed that she was into animation, because I've been a lifelong lover of animation since the 1940s, when I was first exposed to Disney shorts and Tom and Jerry in the cinema, and preeminently that masterpiece of kitsch, The Three Caballeros by Walt Disney, which really has some fantastic stuff in it. By the time that I met Thalma, I was already involved in experimental theatre, and we got to know each other, and she invited my company to do some voice work on, I think it was Green Man, Yellow Woman. Are we going to see that this evening? And in the credits there you'll see the Phantom Captain, but one of the members of my group was also a cartoonist and worked in animation, so you'll see his name there in the credits, David Webster, and my wife did some colouring for her as well. Yeah. As to Amateur Night, I can remember the recording that was made for the backing sound, which was an audience responding to some acts, as you will see. And I can remember when we recorded that Thalma was leading the noise and the reaction, the responses, and you can hear Thalma's voice on it. But the most memorable thing for me about Amateur Night is that for the first and only time in my life, I am depicted in it. I have a small role in it. and I won't tell you what it is, but we'll see if you recognise me. I was rather startled when I saw the way that Thalma had depicted me and my wife, but perhaps I can just leave it at that for the moment and return to it later if any of you wish to identify me. That's all for now. Thank you.
You reminded me that meeting in the Green Man has a special significance because Thalma's second film is called Green Man, Yellow Woman, and I think she's been pursued by green men all her life, really, and this, I think, shows in a lot of her later drawings, doesn't it? Yeah, is that true, isn't it? So, so now you're really in the Green Man. Okay, I don't know. Do you want any questions? Do you have any questions now, or
no,
just
later.
go on?
I think it's better after.
Okay. I don't know if there's any questions about Thalma or.
I think it's probably better to have questions a bit later. We'll see
Yeah,
some of the work and some of the images.
Yep.
What would you like to do now? Show the work or show the
animations,
images?
I think the films, yeah, and I thought we could maybe show the first two films, have a short, a few seconds break, if there's any questions, and then go on, have a few seconds in between.
Okay, great.
Any questions, maybe? I don't know.
Was everything done in 35mm?
Yeah, 35.
And you it was all sort of hand painted.
Sorry?
It was all sort of painted.
Handmade it, yeah.
Right.
And showed by me, everything. Edited.
Yeah. Because with the second film, I was sort of reminded of the painting. It sort of looked very painterly to me. You know, it sort of reminded me a little bit with the colour scheme of Marc Chagall and the sort of kind of crazy people that are all sort of bunched up together, kind of looking at each people. Yeah, good.
I think a lot of Tom's later paintings are like that as well.
Yeah.
That style.
Which one was the most erotic film that the Daily Mail had seen? Was it the last one?
No, it's one to come.
May I just ask, when did you discover animation? These are from your period at the London Film School. Was it at St Martin's?
St Martin, Bob Godfrey was the one who put me on it. I knew him that time, and he said I should do it. Yeah.
And that was, what kind of work were you producing before you started animation?
I made some other movies, another animation, but it's not, it was lost. Yeah, but I used to paint, like, you know, in St Martin's, yeah, and then I went into it.
What you've described is very similar to what a regular here called Emma Calder told a story about Bob Godfrey, that she was kind of on the point of giving up, and he wrote her this comprehensive letter saying just to carry on and to focus on this and to complete.
No, he was the one who put me into it. Yeah.
Right.
I met that time. He was he had the studio in Water Street, and I was in St Martin's. I'm talking about 1970.
Right. And was he coming in to do lectures at St Martin's?
No.
Completely independent.
Yeah. I was kind of friendly, you know.
You mentioned before, Martin, about people having objections at a film festival.
No, not to this.
Well, not these films. What?
The later one.
The next one.
I've seen it later. Was it the same one that you posted?
Stanley.
Yeah.
And
No, Amateur Night was the one.
Amateur Night was the one they mainly objected to.
Yeah. Amateur Night. Yeah.
Were you a student at the time?
When Amateur Night was no, I was already out of.
Can I ask what the significance of the colours are, the yellow and the green?
There's no significance.
Subconscious
I came
decision.
from a sunny country, so strong colours, yeah.
You have a psychologist?
I'm a psychologist, yeah.
In the room, so that's quite unique in a sense to come with a psychologist. And because the work, do you feel like the work in the 70s, do you think it was quite liberating making work that maybe people had taboo about, talking about sex?
Well, it was kind of people at that time it was very, very open, and it was, in a way, also the fashion a little bit.
Period of sexual liberation.
Yeah,
you say.
it was. Yeah.
That
And women
facilitated it.
liberation, and yeah.
Do you think it was more liberating then than it is now?
No, it's all internet. I don't know.
It's the time before AIDS, I think that's the basically.
It's all
It's not
closed.
like Clark Gable.
Thalma, do you still like Clark Gable?
I never actually liked him.
You seem to want a sort of metamorphosis.
It's a symbolic. It was a symbolic sex symbol. You know, I use it as a symbol.
Okay. Has Richard attempted psychological or even psychoanalytical reading of your work?
He was always advising me and around, and I used to take him every film. He was in the editing room, he was in the camera, he was in every stage.
He was in the film as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, partly. Yeah, he took part in every stage. Even today I showed him some new drawings I did in the bookies. So I'm going to show you later.
Drawings in the bookies, not me in the bookies.
But did he try to analyse the films when he was
Oh,
working
never,
with you?
no.
That doesn't seem to me too much point in that, because the films are there. So why would you? They are the discussion of these issues. So why would you need a discussion of the discussion?
Sorry, I asked now.
There's probably a Latin phrase for that, isn't there?
What?
Who analyses the analysts?
Oh, yes.
I don't know.
Quis custodiet ipsos custodes.
That's the one, yeah.
Well,
Should we proceed? How many would you like to show now?
3, yeah.
perhaps, well,
The rest.
I don't know, it's up to you really. I mean, I think that it's quite useful sometimes to stop after each one. There's only 3.
I think, just from experience, I think it's probably better to show
Show all
them.
of them.
Oh, okay.
Show all of
Okay.
them.
All right.
Yeah. Jodie, do you mind awfully just
Facing the door.
just turn the light off outside? You just press the switch. You don't turn it. Straight ahead of you.
Back this way.
Oh, sorry.
Just
I should
around the
know.
corner.
Just here.
So, questions for Thalma after seeing the films?
What sort of reaction did you get at the time with these films when they were shown in festivals?
Strong.
Was it mainly for men, or was it mixed men and women? Everyone.
Strong, yeah.
Well, even something like Stanley, which is okay. It's a bit sort of into bestiality, possibly, but big deal. I mean, in the early 1970s, there were quite a number of films that sort of dealt with that sort of, that kind of subject, but not in such a humorous way, So I mean, I found them very engaging. I think I would have found them engaging if I'd seen them then too.
Yeah, they're not dated,
No.
What about, for instance, being in art school and, St. Martin's being very progressive compared to, say, other schools or academies where, the tradition of life studies, often, the classics, people are still trying to, work with very, within rigid guidelines of like what life drawing should be as such. But then, of course, art history had a whole wealth of resources.
It was done in the London Film School,
Right.
this film, and the mood that time was that it was that kind of very freedom, a lot of freedom. I mean, like this film, I draw it, I color it, I shot it, I edited it with some, but all the process was done by me, everything. There's about 1,000 drawings there.
Did you have a cat to
Amateur
work
nights,
Did you have reference? How they moved?
a cat.
Mm-hmm.
There was a cat in Israel, something.
So you just did it from your memory, how they moved?
No. I just draw one drawing by one after another with the light bulbs, you know, just happen like that.
Is there a reason why it's called Stanley?
Because I had one night stand with somebody called Stanley. It's true.
Do you think if you were a man, you would have had, you know, there would have been more animosity towards your work? You know, do you think it was easier because you were a woman to make films about sort of sexual matters, that it was, you know, it was
I think a lot of people did sexual matters at the time. Yes, at the time. But I think probably I went to the extreme. I mean, even now I'm going to the extreme. I'm doing something that nobody else does this moment. I'm very excited about it. I'm doing, I draw in bookies. You know William Hill? I will show you later if you want to see it. It's quite interesting because I start off drawing them when they were gambling, and then I changed their position and they became somewhere else, if you know what I mean.
But there was quite strong reaction in the press. I mean, we've got a few clippings we could show you later. So there was a strong reaction, wasn't there? In newspapers and magazines.
Yeah.
From cat lovers?
But from feminists, wasn't it, as well? And that's quite...
from feminists particularly. Thalma would know more about that. You were attacked by some feminists?
Yeah. But it's very strange because I found the animation, I mean, after many years of doing it, that, I mean, there is one film that is not there, and it's very important that it should be here. It's the magician one. Is that when you draw something, and it start to move around, it has power. Because in a way I had to live. For the last 30 years I had to live those films after I made them. So it's a very important point that everybody should know. That those films, when you draw them and they become, if they have the fact that they're moving around already, they have power, spiritual power. So those films are magical actually. I had to, I mean, if I was that time, if I was like 30 years ago doing them, I will have definitely happier ending. Because I know it now. It's very important to know that those images, as soon as you draw them and they move around, they have power.
Do you mean they have power over your life or just generally?
The fact that they're existing, they have power.
But over everybody or over you?
Over me, yeah.
When you say like to, would you think, because before Stanley, the titles, you know, how they're drawn was very different, and then the beginning of Stanley is very like hand drawing, kind of like, you know, leaning to the left, and it's more just handwriting, but that's kind of a nice feeling to it as well. With the ending, would you feel like you would change it somehow?
Oh yeah, if I knew now what I knew, if I knew that time what I know now, I would have a different ending.
Because the time, the effort.
Because it has power.
Special film.
Animation. I mean, nobody realizes it, but it has power actually. And I tell you it for guaranteed because it was done in 1979, and now I'm talking about many years ago. So they have power, and there is another film that I made called The Great Colzini, The Magician, where it's not, unfortunately, it's not transformed into DVD. It's still in 35 format, and but it's undoing in a way what those films were done. They were undoing them.
Because Colzini was the magician, wasn't
the magician, yeah. It was undone. I mean, it's a very important film because you only see that, but you should really see the final.
Is that the film that was partly financed by a Hollywood studio?
Yeah.
Was it Columbia or 20th Century Fox? Paramount actually put up some money for that. They were interested in investing in Thalma's work.
Yeah.
How did that come about? How did that come about, Paramount discovering your work?
From the other film.
Right.
Of the other film, yeah. But it's still in format for the moment. Yeah.
Right. Do you have any plans to tell you?
Absolutely, to finish it, yeah. It was about 1.5 hours was shot.
It was what?
1.5 hours was shot.
So it was actually a feature-length film?
It is, but it's, when I made it that time, I didn't have the tools to actually to edit it.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about the mental tools, I'm not talking about the...
Oh, I see.
Yeah, yeah. It's very complex.
And might you go the digital route and have the 35mm print telecine-ed and then edit it?
I don't know what to do with it because I have it on the phone. I transfer it to video.
Right.
So, but it's damaged and I can't transfer it to you know.
What format videotape is it on?
It is in a video.
VHS tape?
VHS, but it's ruined. There's something ruined about it. So
but you still have.
But I have 35mm.
Right, right. It's a shame that Jez Stewart isn't here, who's a regular visitor from the British Film Institute.
I would like very much to, yeah.
Did you mention Jez Stewart?
I did mention him, yeah.
Because he's a great supporter of British animation. He works at the BFI, he's an archivist and so on. This really sounds like a job for them to pay to have it telecine-ed again for you. Yeah.
Would you change the ending then?
Yeah, if I knew that time, definitely, 100%. With 5 good male woman, definitely she will marry Clark Gable. 100%. He will be, and with yellow, with it's very strange. Like the man that I draw in Night Call, yeah, that man actually died really a couple of years later. The man that I was drawing, that fell out of the window, is a real man. He was a friend of mine. He was actually a famous man at the time. I don't want to mention his name, but he died 2 years after this film was made.
Have you thought of...
suddenly too, like...
Yeah, I was thinking when I was watching them, bearing in mind that you were making these films in the 1970s, in the late 1970s, that I think, let's say if I could put myself in your position, from today, being pretty much the same age as you, I would try and transfer all of those films to video and redo them, and maybe recolour them, take scratches out.
I moved on.
And but you might want to change the ending, you might want to change the soundtrack or whatever.
But surely for your DVD release, you'd want to have them restored from the original 35mm.
Yes, I have the 35 at home. Yeah. I have the,
So is that going to be the basis for the DVD, or are you going to work?
Which one? The Magician?
No. Richard said earlier you want to release a DVD of your films. I was wondering then if this is the opportunity to telecine the 35mm prints that you mentioned are in your cupboard.
I don't think there are 35mm prints of the other films.
All of them I have. All of them in my house, even the negative.
Sure?
Yeah, yeah. Scanning the negative. Come to my cupboard. I'm inviting you to my cupboard.
That's the title of your next film.
Yes.
Can I just ask, when I was watching your films, I loved the way, kind of the movements, they seem quite almost spontaneous.
Yeah.
And it made me wonder, how much did you storyboard them, or was it very improvised, the way you kind of...
I had a basic storyboard, but it just was leading, the hand was leading itself from one drawing to another.
Yeah,
especially the last
feeling.
one.
It was really, I really like that.
Yeah, especially the last one. It was just going... Also, there is another... Dick, do you want to show the light?
There is another.
There is another one, but it's a film that's based on the same idea of... But I don't know if it's a film that never was finished. It was after, but it never was edited. So you see it as it was exactly as it was shot. But it's interesting. So it's a bit long too, a little bit long.
Does it have sound?
No.
Would you like to talk through it while we show it?
Yeah. Okay.
Great.
Yeah. I don't know. I hope it's in a good condition.
Okay. Well, we'll.
But it's not edited. It's not cut. It's just as I shot it.
Right. Okay.
It was shot in the late 80s.
Ah, right.
But you see, it's very, very slow because it's not cut. It's exactly as I shot it. 35 millimeter under the camera. I shot it like that, and I didn't do any editing. Nothing, just as it is. It's a bit too light. You have to make it more dark, no?
Yeah.
It's too.
What was the technique you used? Is it painted?
Yeah, no, it's all cell animation. Each one is drawn, but it's a bit too bright. It has to be more dark. Can you make it a bit darker?
Yeah, you can.
Should we pause it then?
Make it a bit darker because it's the arrival of the woman in that magician story.
Could you tell us the story of the magician? or the context of it?
The magician was created by the rabbit, but it's not here. And he was created very blue, and he was looking for his and he created complete, and then he was looking for his magic wand, and he disintegrated. They couldn't find it, and he became a little boy, and everybody laughed at him because he can't find his magic wand. He doesn't know who he is. But it's not connected to this. I don't know. I'll say it later. This is the arrival of the woman in this film, the magician. As it was shot. Have you seen it? It's not cut, no? The second one. It dark and evil. He's looking for his identity. He can't find it. He's blue and he's cold. He's looking for a magic wand. He disintegrates. He's looking for a magic wand. He can't find it. The rabbit laughs at him. He hates the rabbit. They're enemies. Then suddenly he realized the rabbit is not an enemy, so through tears and while he was a baby, he found the magic wand. He doesn't know how to use it. He started to bang with it. Everybody laughed at him. The audience laughed at him. Everybody laughed at him. He's trying to use the magic wand. He doesn't know how to use it. He goes like that. He goes like that. Nothing happens. He goes like that. He goes like that. Then suddenly the magician, the rabbit, showed him not like this, but like this, like that, like that. So the rabbit, in 3 stages, enters his head. First of all, he goes here. He does this. People are losing the clothes, but it's not strong enough. Then the rabbit enters his head. The final one, when the rabbit enters his head, all the rubbish comes from the theater. Everybody loses the clothes. And the magician at that time is very weak and small, but good. He's good this time. Then the rabbit starts to show him, offer. Everybody lose, everybody, all the rubbish come. He doesn't know what to do. The rubbish is coming from the theater, is suffocated him, but then he starts to control it. He goes like that. It becomes black balls. It becomes colorful ball. It becomes the raven. It disintegrates. Then while it's all happening, he's getting his trousers back. He's becoming, his image change. He become in one, he looks like Houdini. He looks like Danny Kaye. He swallowed. Then everything that was going before, all the rubbish, goes through colorful ball, black balls, colorful ball, flowers, and then the heart. He swallowed the heart. He turns around. He becomes this kind of another image, like a more soft, not as hard as it was before. Then. The rabbit, who was in his head all the time, comes out of his head. They produce the, he breathes orange light into the theater, and the rabbit and him producing the violin. They start to play the violin, and while it's all happening, a huge light comes, and the woman arrives. That woman, yeah? She arrived, but this is only a process, you know. Then the woman and him making love, and the power of them making love release a huge energy into the theater, huge energy that start to, like electricity, start to break cages of monkey. The monkey gives a light to the other things, one to another, like electricity, and then the theater got a huge light, and then the rabbit sings a huge song, and this is the end.